now we're going to pack a box. In a museum, you'll be packing probably a collection of similar objects, but for the demonstration, I'm going to pack a rather unexpected combination of objects into the box, just for demonstration. If you're doing training, make sure that you use things, this is precious, but make sure you use things that are not museum collections until you've practiced the technique. So I'm just going to pop the objects that we'll be packing out of the way. Ideally, you'd have these on a trolley or on a larger table. But if you are going to pick things up, remember, pick them up by supporting from underneath, don't pick them up by the handles. So here's a pretty standard kind of museum box with a lid. It's a degree of acid-free tissue in the card. This is a flat pack design, which I really like because it means that when you've not got objects in them, you can keep them flat. Even though it's a basic acid-free box, I will line my box with acid-free tissue. Acid-free tissue we choose because it doesn't contain contaminants which might react with our object. So I'm just going to simply line the box so that it's just got an acid-free tissue lining. Then I'm going to take some of my puffs that I made earlier. And line the bottom of my box. You can see now that at the bottom of the box is full up with little puffs. Good box packing is like building a nest, a supportive nest for your objects. It's not about wrapping objects because that's actually not very good for them, but it's about supporting them in a cocoon or a safe padded environment. So then I take my objects, lifting them carefully, not lifting them by hand. You will take the object number for your documentation, and my assistant off screen will be recording all this. Take the object, lift from underneath, place it inside the box, support from underneath. And what I'm doing is I'm setting them out within the box, each in their own space. Here's my little couple more objects. Always retain the natural orientation of your objects because that's their strongest point. So the way that they were built to be, put them in that orientation. I'm going to, I'll put one more object in here. This is meant to be flat, I think. No, actually, so now, I don't know if you can see this. I'll see if I can capture this. Excuse me. It's maybe ill-advised. No, I'm not sure of it. Can you carry the box across? So what you need to be able to see is that each object has its own space within the box. They're not banged up against each other. Then I take my sausages and puffs and just place the puffs on top to hold things down. Or where there's perhaps with one of the mugs, I'm just going to fold this around the mug in one of my corners just to keep padding between the objects and between the edges. So the sausages are always going to be quite helpful at this point. Place the sausage around some of the bigger items and just putting the puffs in between. And I need one more puff. Crunch, corners, and in we go. I'm going to see if we can again just have a look at what we've got. So if I take this over towards the camera, can you see? Things are just held in place by the tissue puffs. I have one very high object in here, so it may not be ideal for putting 2 layers in, but I'll just show you how to do that in any case. I think I need one more tissue puff on top of my mug and on the other mug. space inefficient because we're using a range of different sized objects. In your own museum, try to pack similar objects together if that works with your documentation and recording. So once we've filled the space up, put a separating layer in. Just a single sheet, folded to fit. So that it's very clear that you have a flat, smooth layer, so that someone's unpacking the box, that they know what layer they're on. And then the next layer, you simply fill up again, placing your objects in the spaces. So I'm just going to put this one in. And I think I'll stop there. Put a couple more tissue puffs in on top. One more. Now, you don't actually have to fill the box, and you can fill the box with a twist of acid-free card, if that helps. You can put a top layer on. At this point, if you've got documentation that you need to add in, like the contents list, then sometimes you put it in the box, sometimes you put it on the box, depending again on your documentation system. The next and important technique is to check that the lid will fit. If you've got too much tissue in, it'll sit high. Now I always use the lid upside down, because if you put it the right way on and it's just a little bit too full, the temptation to just push it down is overwhelming. But if you do it the wrong way around and it sits a bit too high, then you can always take one of the tissue puffs out, squash it down, and retest it. Can you hear now that that's touching? So now you know it's safe to put the lid on, so you just turn it over and you put the lid on. If you're feeling brave, you give your box a shake. You don't normally shake the boxes, but we're just going to give it a little shake for the video. And there's nothing really happening there. So this is safe to go. Obviously in a real museum situation, you're not going to shake it, but you might just give it a little bit of a movement. Now, just want to show you, because part of packing a box is the way that you unpack the box. And that's what's really important about this technique. Because when you set to unpack the box, you'll open it, you'll have a contents list either in the box or perhaps from your documentation system. And if you go to do that, you'll take the objects out like this. You take the tissue out, and I've taken all the tissue out, and there's no question of my objects being mixed up with the tissue. And now I've exposed the top layer and I can see my objects, which means if I need to wear gloves, I can put the gloves on. I can take the objects out and I can see them before I handle them. I can see them before I have to pick them up. And then I now know I'm on the next layer. I take out my dividing line, and if I want something from the bottom layer, I just have to take a few tissues off. Again, I can see everything that's in the bottom layer, and if I want something from it, I can see it before I touch it. So I can put my hands in underneath, pick it up, support it by the base with one hand to support and one hand to balance, and get the object I need to go and do the museum work that I'm looking for. And the way that this works is it keeps the tissues and the object separate. Whereas, if you wrap an object, the danger is always that you drop the object unwrapping it. More importantly, that you turn it over and over before you've seen it. This technique allows you to see what you're doing. Thank you.